Welcome to Produce Talks.
This whole business is based on relationship and friendships.
Food is darn simple.
What can we do? What are other countries doing?
How important it is for industry to be talking about this.
We're going back to the farm. We're going back to the whole food.
Hi, I'm Wally Burns, the Education and Training Manager at CPMA. CPMA would like to acknowledge Nature Fresh Farms as our Produce Talks series sponsor. Find out more about Nature Fresh Farms and how they are growing for a kinder future at www.naturefresh.ca. You can keep up with them on Instagram or Twitter at nature_fresh and on Pinterest at naturefresh, along with other social media. CPMA would also like to welcome Fresh from Florida as a sponsor of this podcast. Here is a quick message from Chef Justin of Fresh from Florida.
Hi, I'm Chef Justin Timoneri, Executive Chef with Fresh from Florida, a proud sponsor of this podcast. Fresh from Florida loves being a part of CPMA and sharing the message of what Florida farmers bring to the table. To learn more and to find hundreds of Florida fresh recipes that we develop for you in our test kitchen, visit followfreshfromflorida.com. And follow us on Instagram and Facebook at Fresh from Florida. Enjoy the show and keep cooking.
Today, we are pleased to have CPMA President Ron Lemaire chat with past chair of CPMA, Guy Milette of Courchesne, Larose, and current chair, Mario Masellis of Catania Worldwide. This is our Produce Talks annual Between Two Chairs special, and they talk about current industry issues and how our industry helps consumers continue to enjoy fresh produce in these tight economic times. They also discuss their activities during the past year, along with last year's convention and trade show in Montreal, and they look forward to our next annual show in Toronto in April 2023.
Thanks, Wally. You know, this podcast is a CPMA tradition as we introduce our new chair at the CPMA annual convention each spring. You know what? To kick things off, Guy, Mario, maybe you can introduce yourself. Guy, let's start with you.
You're on. So my name is Guy Milette, Executive Vice President of Courchesne Larose. And by now, everybody knows that I'm born in a cabbage patch. I have been implicated in CPMA for now over 15 years, and I just completed my term as CPMA chair. Courchesne Larose is a century-old company and pioneer in the evolution of this industry. We are located in Montreal, but our play yard is North America.
That's great. Mario, tell us a little bit about yourself.
My name is Mario Masellis. Been involved with the CPMA for probably 14 and a half years. So Guy's got 6 months on me, as you can tell by the look on his face. He's a little older and a little more seasoned. I'm currently Vice President of Sales and Marketing for Catania Worldwide, a company that's been around since 1929, coming up to its 100th year anniversary. Located in Toronto, Ontario, but we have locations in Mexico, Western United States and California, Vineland, New Jersey, and McAllen, Texas.
So, you know, Mario, we learned a little bit about Guy, something that people don't know, that he was born in a cabbage patch. You know, I know something about you that I don't think the rest of the world knows. You want to share your little family secret with everybody?
Now, which secret? We got many family secrets.
Well, let's talk about the feud.
Okay, so me and my Mario Masellis is not a unique name to my family. There are four of us in Canada and one in Italy. We're all named after my grandfather, and we've been a very close family. And we decided last year to put our nomination in to play the Family Feud Canada version, and we got on. And we taped our show last September. It aired on CBC in November, and it was one of the greatest experiences we ever had in our lives as a family. We didn't win the big money. We were one question away, but it was a lot of fun.
So, you know what, for our listeners, if you want to see our Family Feud superstar, Mario Masellis and his cousin Mario and his other cousin Mario and his other cousin Mario, and then your other cousin is...
Mario.
Not Mario.
Oh, Michael and
Michael. And Anthony. Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, guys. So this is always a great opportunity to chat. You know, we have a chair that's come off of his term. We have one coming in. Both of you, as you have mentioned, have had long-standing experience in the industry and on the association. You know, this is a different time. We're emerging from lockdowns. We, seen COVID influence our working environments. We have rising inflation. We have supply chain issues. And both of you have been dealing with this in your own businesses, but also in your leadership roles with the association. So, you know what, Guy, you mentioned this was, the tail end of your term as chair, and you wrapped up at our convention. You know, what have you seen during your term that is really different? What's the big changes? And most importantly, what were the big accomplishments you were happy, to deliver on and proud of?
Wow, it's a long list. And, the challenge that we had during the COVID, no matter if you're in 2020 and 2021, it was just such a long list. Meeting were abnormal as far as quantity. The CPMA challenges and our participation as board member, but also executive and as chair, has been a lot bigger and larger implication than any normal year. And Mario, you're going to live it. So the challenge were staff, the CPMA as an association were able to fully function and regardless if it's working from home or mix at the office. So everybody had lived pretty much the same issue. But as far as accomplishment, it's definitely the return to an in-person CPMA Congress. After a few years of struggling online, we really needed to see people's in the eyes. And there's a few types of person usually participating at a CPMA Congress. Most people really want to be there, but there are a few that are corporately forced to be there. But in Montreal 2022, everybody were happy to be there. And it was such a great relief to be walking around people and see all these companies after 3 years of missing that show. It was just great. I mean, I'm talking about it, but there's so much emotion that can come out of this. And it was difficult. It was short terms. It was shortly prepared, but we delivered. An amazing team that we have to organize all that. And this is a great accomplishment as far as I'm concerned.
Well, you know what? I know when you sat down and talked about strategically where we wanted to go, you talked about business connectivity. And like you said, how do we get everyone back together? And by hell or high water, I know you were focused on making that happen, which everything worked out. On the advocacy side, I know we were really fortunate. We were pushing hard. The number of standing committee meetings you went to and virtually, and then also running a couple town halls, which we were eager to put in play. And what was really exciting at our face-to-face was we had a senator, a member of parliament, and the ambassador of the United States in Montreal as part of our convention, which was key. But what people don't realize is we had over 20 different countries, ambassadors and ag attaches at our convention and come to our booth for an international reception, just to showcase what Canada is all about, how diversified we are in our industry. And I know that was all part of your mandate and part of that drive on how do we connect everybody together. Mario, I'm going to throw over to you. So you've been involved with CPMA for some time, executive committee, HR committee, North American Trade Working Group, chair, now stepped down from the Government Issue Management Industry Committee. You are still engaged on CGIM, our convention organizing committee. You've been a mentor with Passion for Produce. So, as we look at all of that engagement you've seen through your volunteer work, as you coming out of your executive role, now taking on the chair role, what do you see for the coming year? What do you see that's really going to be important to drive?
First of all, I want to say to Guy and his team, the Montreal Convention, with the amount of time you had to put it together, was a complete success. And I totally agree with you, Guy. It was so important for us to be engaged personally and physically with the people to get back to what we are. We're a people business. Everyone can sell a head of lettuce or a case of kiwi or mangoes or whatever, but getting together was the most important part. to answer your question, Ron, I think the important part for my thing is to get more and more people involved and engaged in our industry. The passion for produce, as you mentioned, was a very, very important part for me. And I believe that we need to get our young people involved. So as chair, I want to continue to foster that environment where people get involved in our industry. The other important part that I believe is the diversity of inclusion in my mandate as chair. 25, 30 years ago, this was a very male-dominated industry. The old boys club, it was the description used to talk about the people in the produce industry. There are many, many diverse ethnic groups that consume fruits and vegetables. And I think if we get them involved in our part of the industry, I think it only enhances and pushes consumption through Canadians. The other part that I really want to include is women. Women are the biggest consumers. They're the ones going out doing a lot of the grocery shopping, and to get them on the procurement end, the buying end, the dealing end, and getting a different perspective on that, I think is very, very important for us. That seems to be what my mandate is going to be for the next year. And I really do want to focus on that.
Yeah, you know what? And the whole diversity inclusion discussion and how CPMA can support that is key. You know, whether, you know, we are looking at, you know, a very narrow core focus that will be our first step, or we try and go broad. I know you're working fairly aggressively right now to help pull together a working group that can give a recommendation to the board on what our strategy is. So that's great to see the organization moving forward in that way. So I want to throw a question at both of you. And you know what? You're both well-versed in the industry. Can you give me, each of you, what your top 2 or 3 biggest issues are impacting our business today? And Guy, let's go to you.
Wow, this is we have a lot of choices to answer that question. But I think an ongoing issue that we have prior to pandemic and that will continue to follow us for the next several years is definitely employment. Very difficult topics. There's so many angles to take it from the field, from the warehouse, from so many different levels. It's not like there's only one portion of workers are missing. It's wide, it's broad, it's everywhere, it's every level. It's as hard as finding a Lyft driver or to find a produce salesperson. There's no classes that have been forgotten. It's been a ongoing issue. I would say that pretty much at the same importance today is the reality that we face with all the supply chain issue leaded by fuel prices to start with. And all that what pandemic have brought has shortage of goods, no matter if it's input, cardboard, seed, fertilizer. It's a long list. I mean, and that will continue to impact us in the next few years. And to add an extra layer, well, we have the war in Ukraine that is bringing so much other level of worriness, you know, from our South American or South African or European supplier is a lot of uncertainty on their export market. It put pressure here on Canada as other country, but is also what people now understand very well is how important is Ukraine as a player in all the fertilizer. And that's going to have a domino effect across the world. No matter where you are, you will not be protected from that. It will affect every single consumer on this planet, no matter what the issue is. And today we see that with the war, there's so much product and grain has been hold there, affecting for the next couple of years market that are absolutely dependent of wheats and other product that has been stuck in Ukraine.
Yeah, you know what? I totally agree. Our supply chains are definitely strained, and you know, Mario, when we look at that, the big piece around some of our supply chain issues are driving price, right? Like right at the bottom line, everyone has been trying to manage costs. They've been trying not to push those costs through where the consumer has to bear the brunt. But can we keep holding back all of these infrastructure costs, all of the supply chain disruption costs, the input cost change, from packaging to fertilizer to, at some point, the system has to push the price through to what the real cost of food is in the market.
Yes.
And how do you see the consumer reacting to that?
Well, the consumer has begun to react. I always like to use my mother as the barometer. I've mentioned this several times throughout our discussions that when my mom starts to complain about the price of fruits and vegetables at her grocery store, then I've got to answer to her, and I simply put it that
you don't want to be on an Italian mother's bad side.
No, not at all. So, but I do have some heated debates and discussions because I realize and how little the Canadian consumer knows about how those fruits and vegetables get to the supermarket shelf. They just think it's grown in the backyard across the street and it comes over. But so the education to the consumer, and yes, to answer your question simply, Ron, we do have to push those prices through, or we're not going to be in business next year. So educating the consumer and how that gets to the shelf is the first thing. The second thing, and probably one of the things that CPMA has been very well engaged in, and we need to continue doing this, is engaging our government to make us the important part of the supply chain that we currently are.
Fresh fruit and vegetables as a priority.
Right. We have to have it as a priority. A lot of MPs, although they're very educated in a lot of their certain portfolios, don't have a clue. As we know, a couple of days ago, I believe yesterday, MP Scott Davidson floored the private members bill to give us the edge that we need to protect our industry against bankruptcy and insolvency, to make sure that we're here next year. So those two problems, I think, are the start of us becoming more important to getting fruits and vegetables to the consumer.
Yeah, and you know what, Mario? You hit something really important here, because MP Davidson's private members bill around bankruptcy and insolvency for produce sellers and farmers, I think it's fundamental. We've been pushing this for a long time, and now that the bill has been, presented to the House, we're looking forward to the second reading. We're looking forward to party support, because we know the Conservatives, the NDP, and the Bloc, all three of the opposition parties, are 100% behind this. And we need to make sure the government is there to push. I know the entire industry and all of the core constituents across the country are going to be pushing hard to make sure all elected officials know when time comes, they want to vote this forward. But most importantly, when you look at all this, with bankruptcy and insolvency, we always say it's cyclical. And we were worried at the beginning, right? At the beginning of the pandemic, where we saw food service and all these other sectors being hit, the government did step up and put the right mechanisms in place for supporting business and the public to be able to ride the pandemic wave. But that's over, right?
It's over now. The pandemic was the microscope that brought out the problem that we all knew existed. Okay. And that as Guy alluded to, labor, immigration, the rising cost of fuel, these were things that were going to happen. What COVID did was actually pop the pimple. And now we had this massive problem that magnified all the underlying problems that have been developing over the last few years in our supply chain. So what COVID allowed the government to do was react. And they asked simply to our industry, are we going to be able to supply fruits and vegetables to Canadians during out the pandemic? And we came through with flying colors. But now, if you want us to continue doing that, we have to pay the price.
So, you know what, I want to throw this in. Guy, you mentioned a couple key pieces, and we talked food inflation. What about the potential of a recession? And I know this is a big worry that's really starting to, be put in front of our industry, looking at, where's the Bank of Canada going to go? Where's the influence of the World Bank on all of our trading partners? Because, $4 out of $5 spent in fruit and vegetable in Canada at retail is spent on an imported product. So we not only have to worry about our own recession elements in Canada, but we have to look at this globally. So what do we need to do? as an industry? Or what does the government need to do?
Ron, the recession is gonna hurt us one way or another, no matter what size it is. It's starting already. We see some effect of it. So people spend a lot of money on real estate over the last couple of years, and we see that bubble is breaking already. But fortunately for the produce industry, we probably will be one of the last one to be impacted, because we can always come back to the roots with basic fruit and vegetables. Obviously, there is luxury items also in the produce industry, and these are the one that you're probably going to see the more affected. But people
first
continue.
Yeah.
They're going to continue to eat produce, the basic, we're talking lettuce, bananas, apple, pears, carrots, onions. This is there to stay. But if people react the right way, they're going to continue having a focus on the food versus on the goods. And like you said, we're going to be impacted by the economy of other country, not only ours. And we already talked to several growers in other South American country, and they're struggling. Their inflation's already hit them a lot harder than it is happening here. So the domino effect will definitely probably cover the entire industry, but people's going to cut on high-end stuff. The meat that you buy at $15 a kilo, you may going to have a lot less, but you're probably going to pay your bananas 25% more, but you're still going to buy your banana. So I got a lot of hope for the produce industry in that recession, but it doesn't look good for the general, as a consumer, for any other goods. It doesn't look good. I mean, Ron?
So you know what, Guy, and this is a little bit of a worry, right? Because you're right. We saw a little bit of that at the beginning of the pandemic. Your root crops, your shelf-stable items, they were running off the shelf quickly, and people were panicking. And we know through past recessions that people do move away from the convenience items, those higher priced produce items, whether it's a table grape or, blueberries that aren't in season, whatever the case may be. But when we sit down and start looking at some of these real challenges moving into the next year or two. And Mario, you're going to be sitting in the chair position, and we start looking at what is our message. So if we were to turn around and look out at the landscape and have that conversation with a member of parliament or a consumer and try and show them, okay, guys, yes, your dollar's not going as far. You may be having an employment issue, because that could be coming down the pipe. Even though we're looking for people now, there's all sorts of variables that are in front of us. What do we tell people?
I like to look at a lot of the positive that COVID brought to us. In our industry specifically, people began to shop for cooking at home. During COVID, the consumption of fruits and vegetables naturally increased. Now people are, want to get back out there, a little stir crazy at home. They want to get back to restaurants. They want to get back to traveling. We have to stay into the consumer's ear that, hey, remember what got you through this pandemic: healthy eating, fruits and vegetable consumption. I always like to compare people who complain about when the bag of 10-pound potatoes goes up over $5.99 or $6.99. Yet this is the same consumer that goes out and buys 4 different varieties of potato chips at $15 and still complains about the price of food.
Or a $5 latte.
Right, 100%. So that being said, the CPMA does, was it that $20 shopping?
What you can buy for $20 on
what
the
you can buy for $20,
website. Yep.
Right? And that's a perfect example of how a family who's now stretching their budget can feed their family nutritiously, get together and cook together as a family, and stay healthy. So I think that's very important. So getting in the consumer's ear.
And I know part of the strategy that came from the board through, not only Guy's mandate, now moving into yours, Mario, and previous mandates has been, how do we put that message out there within social media? And I will say, we have some really dynamic social media happening right now. Jen Ontong, our on-site resident dietitian at CPMA, she's been doing some fabulous videos on YouTube, on Facebook, just showing people how easy it is, to prepare, store, and enjoy, products at any time of the year and in a good budget. So I want to go back and then talk a little bit about the association, right? So in your role of chair, Guy, what advice can you give? Because this is a conversation between two chairs. What would you tell Mario? You're got a week or two, actually now a month under your belt. What next? What does he need to know leading into his year as chair?
Well, one thing is for sure that, and I was looking forward for that for my terms. Unfortunately, COVID have decided otherwise, but traveling across the country, met the members, meet the association, the provincials association, or any other association. It is so important because, we got to show to these small association and members that are abroad everywhere in the country that we're there and we listen to them. We respond. We're there to serve our member at the end of the day. And it's feasible over the phone, over the internet, over Zoom, but there's nothing that replaces these face-to-face. I had the opportunity to meet two of them at the end of my terms, and whoa, what an experience. Honestly, peoples are waiting for us. They want to see us. They want to talk to us. They want to question us. And this is how, at the end of the day, that we get people implicated into this voluntary work that CPMA need is a non-for-profit organization. And unfortunately, too many people may have forget about this. We live with the work of all is our volunteer member, and our volunteer leader is up to another level. As chair, you need to reach to these guys and show them who's the boss this year.
So you know what?
So hold on, I'm writing this down.
What do you think, Mario? Yeah.
Who's the boss? Is what I'm getting out of this. No,
and we all know who's boss, gentlemen. We all know who's boss.
Guy, I think what I'm getting from that is that we need to cultivate relationships and continuing to cultivate relationships. I mean, one thing that I pride myself here at Catania Worldwide is that we have relationships, business relationships with growers, packers, shippers around the world. And these are relationships that were passed down, a lot of them, from Paul Catania Sr., Paul Catania Jr., and now to myself, through 50, 60 years of history of maintaining those relationships, continuing to relationships with Canadian growers across the country and giving them the opportunity to bring their wares to the market and giving them the support and their voice with industry and in government. So that's what I'm getting at, that, getting through these town hall meetings, because a lot of people don't realize, I mean, as Canadians, we know how big Canada is, but the rest of the world internationally just thinks of Canada as that other country north of the US. But we got what, six, 7 different time zones here?
And we have 38 million people stretched across a wide swath of the country, but they're high consumers of fruit and vegetables.
Right, they are. And consumers of vegetables that we bring in from all over the world.
Yeah. Because
we are a nation of immigration.
Yes. And so, you know what? You guys are in a unique position. You're importers, exporters, you're wholesalers, you're solution providers. And this is the new world for your segment of the industry. So I'm going to ask you both, think a second here. You're in a room. You have your retail partners there, and you have your grower partners. If you were to look at each, what advice would you give them to build and develop their business? So, Guy, let's go to you. You're looking at your retail partners, and you're saying they're going, okay, guys, this is what we need to do to be better. What is that message?
Well, as an importer and distributor, I'll tell you that this industry have totally changed. Every slice of tenure bring important change in the industry. And if you go back in the 80s and 90s, all the transaction, the international transactions were really linear. So we were point B and the shipper was point A, and then our customer was point C. Well, A and C were never talking together, and most likely they didn't even know each other at all. In today's reality, all the retailer has a need to go more direct, even internationally. So how do we stay connected into this? We took this linear transactional and brought it into a triangle. The retailer, they need partners to receive international goods, to store them because container never arrive when they really need it. They need some packaging, they need some repack, they need some sorting if there is any issue with it, and it needs to be delivered on time. At the end of the day, the retailer continue to need people like us. And by bringing everybody into a triangle transaction, everybody talks to each other. And at the end of the day, our role have changed, but we're still there. And I think if I have one message is to make sure you need a point B in the middle to continue servicing, because, as a distributor, we're not just a wholesaler, we became a service company. And this is so true today. We keep saying this in the last decade or even a bit more, but is so true today. We are a service company. We're there to service both shippers and customers, no matter if they're retailer or food service or whatever. And we actually adapt to the new reality. Today it's labor, tomorrow it will be something else.
So Mario, you'd handle a lot of product coming from, Italy, Spain, New Zealand, Mexico. When you talk to some of these other partners in, different countries, and they want to know a little bit, what do you do? What are you saying to them? How are you? And let's say it's a new grower saying, tell me about Canada. What do I need to know about the country? And then what are you doing to make their life better to get into Canada?
Guy was spot on with all of his ideas of linear, where it used to be a whole bunch of silos and no one spoke to each other. As an importer, you would bring in whatever. Today, the best thing we can do is listen. We listen to the growers and what they're packing. We listen to the consumer and what they want to eat. Everyone else in the middle, as Guy suggested, is a service provider. So we go to the growers and explain to them what makes up Canada, the different consumers that there are, even East Coast, Central Canada, West Coast, different consuming of different products. And then offer them the suggestions on what they can send to Canada. I mean, many conversations I have with apple growers in Europe. Hey, we've got this great apple. We want to send it to you. Well, it's unfortunately at the same time that our local apples are doing, are growing and we're sending out. So there's really no need for it. So our job is to make sure that we educate them. We're listening to our retailers. What size apple do they want? What size kiwi are they looking for? What varieties can they sell to the consumers? Because a retailer in Quebec is different than a retailer in Ontario, and is different than a retailer in Saskatchewan and Alberta. So I think that's what we can do. We can make sure that we're listening to our consumers, listening to our retailers, listening to our growers, and putting it all together.
And as you guys know, but our listeners may not, CPMA now has a retail merchant working group, and we're working with Mike Mowdy, who is our data expert.
Yes.
And we're doing regular consumer outreach to try and ensure by region and community, we understand what is the trend, where is things going. And broader than that, for the CPMA membership, a very comprehensive data strategy so we can make business decisions on, hey, do we need to have a different flavor profile? Is a consumer looking for maybe a little bit more bricks on the product line coming through? So all these things mean something, right? We go back to, remember Olene's Thermos chair? Her theme was flavor.
Right? And that's what drives consumption. Yeah. I don't know how many times someone will go to the grocery store and pick up something that just doesn't taste as good. Well, that's our responsibility. We need to pass that on to the grower. Grow something that tastes good.
So guys, I'm going to stop you there, Mario. How do we convince our growers? I know, when the market is hot and you want to get in and get that big price, but sometimes you may be pulling product, whether off the tree or, off the plant, maybe a little too early to meet price, but the product's not really the flavor, size. Does that hurt or help?
Oh, let me jump in right away. It hurts. It hurts. It hurts everything. It hurts the supply chain. It puts a strain on the importers. It puts a strain on the retailers that are now looking for a cheaper price. But you could give it away for free if it's not worth selling. it's not worth it. So it's transparency. It's bringing that whole idea that, hey, we're all in this together. Guy and I, on paper terms, are competitors. He's a wholesaler in Montreal, an importer exporter. We're a wholesaler exporter in Toronto. We share a lot of the same customers, but we have to work together in the sandbox and be transparent. There are many times I'll call Guy and Guy will tell me, hey, you know what, the price of that should be here. Here's where our market is. Do you have some of this? Do you need some of this? Our responsibility is to get the right product to the consumer at the right time, at the right price, and make sure it tastes good. What a concept.
Yeah.
And Ron, we talk to so many growers, and obviously there's different mentality at that level as well. And as you see younger generation taking over on the grower side, they come from a totally different taste, twist of mind. They will do more on the merchandising, on the marketing than just basically growing like older generation probably focus. And you see a need to be different. And how do we become different is to get that flavor profile, that quality, the right sizing, avoid waste and stuff like that. But at the end of the day, it is, how do we get a farm to the next level? We just don't grow a product as a commodity. There's a lot of it, but if you want to be different, you need to get that little notch that makes you different. And I think that younger generation, these new generation that join these grower, they get that more easily. They got access to social network, which is fairly affordable. It's cheap. So you know what? They get comment, they got feedback from consumer. They want to know. They have the touch to reach the consumer a lot easier than what ever happened 10 and 20 years ago.
So, we're talking about those new growers coming into the market, the younger, and it could be across the supply chain. I think that whole new view of how the business runs. And, Mary, you talked about diversity, inclusion, and, how do we, include more people of color, women, individuals of, a range of different ethnic backgrounds. And I think what's really important is the views and the strengths that these various communities across Canada bring is key. And I go back to the word community. I'm a strong proponent, as everyone's heard at every convention. CPMA is a community. We succeed as a village. And how do we build that village and how do we build that corporate culture and that community culture is key. So when you guys are out looking for those employees, and you want to look at retention and satisfaction and, overall health of your employees and the industry, what are you guys doing? Do you have any advice for the listeners on, how they can engage and build those strategies?
Well, we will not reinvent the wheel today on this, because this is little step that company needs to consistently do. To keep people involved in the industry, they first need to give them access to places to satisfy their curiosity. CPMA is actually one of the greatest place to be, because for young people to develop their circle of influence, it's not going to happen if they stay at work or if they don't get mixed. Developing a circle of influence is the more important thing. And the younger you start, the better it is. You get to participate into some CPMA on a very young age. Well, 20 years later, your circle of influence have become a lot higher. You have met people that became VP, sales manager, or whatever, but it grows with you, and it grows across the country and even in the US. So, you know what? I think in order to have some retention, salary is very important, but it's not the only thing that you can do. People needs to be satisfied with their working condition, work environment. The remote work, it's not that easy in the produce industry. As a produce buyer, you cannot do everything from home. So there's a large percentage of the company that actually has been in presence. During the pandemic, everybody were at home dreaming about going back to work. while the produce industry were at work dreaming about going home. So, and where do we find the right balance? It's easier, let's say, for different department, IT, accounting, but people who had their two hands in the produce, it's hands-on. You need to be there. We were there. We were fighting for it. But you should see how proud all the staff, buyers, and salesperson and warehouse and are so happy and proud how we went through pandemic.
Yeah.
Mario, what are your thoughts? I know passion for produce. You were a big proponent of that, and I know that circle of influence Guy talks to. What's really interesting is we've now seen alumni through passion. We have some on our we have some on our committees. Some wanting to get on our board, and that's really what this is all about.
It's engagement. Very few people outside of our community and our industry know what we actually do. So once they're engaged, once they're understanding of what we actually do, we're a fun bunch of people. We're actually quite animated about our industry. We're very passionate about our industry, hence the name Passion for Produce. But once you're in, very few people leave the industry. Our turnover rate, although they may go from one company to another while they find their fit, or within the industry, instead of doing transportation, they're now doing sales. I've had a lot of people start in our marketing department that all of a sudden turned around and said, no, I don't want to do sales. But once they realize what we actually do and develop relationships and selling and getting to know our customers, they always say, hey, that's kind of fun. That's kind of neat. Starting a program from the ground. That's one of the most exciting things to do. Finding a new product, a new varietal, a new crop. They bring it from start to finish to the consumer. And I've never seen anyone walk through a supermarket shelf, go to the produce department where they see their own product, where they knew what it took to get that product on the shelf. They are so excited. They love it.
Well, you know what, Mario, even not only our community of employees and staff, we also have our broader community in our food system of ambassadors and government and finance. And I know we're going to be hosting an embassy meeting with ambassadors to talk about why Canada is so important, right? Why the convention is a key meeting place. So, as we ramp up between now and focus on April of next year, is there any one thing that you want to tell the listeners, why do they need to be in Toronto?
Well, Guy may not like to hear this, but Toronto is the largest city in Canada. It is.
It's the center of the universe. We hear this regularly.
No, it's not the center of the universe, but you can fly direct from anywhere from Toronto. So there's a lot of direct flights into Toronto. Although our hockey team is nowhere near as successful as the Montreal Canadiens, I will say it to you right now, Guy, and admit it to that. But it is the largest city in Canada. It's going to be the most diverse ethnically, and it's going to be a place that you want to be in April for the convention. Not because I'm chair, but because you're going to see everyone from across Canada, the United States, and from Europe, Mexico come in and displaying and exhibiting their fare, what the world has to offer to Canada and Toronto specifically.
Yeah, I agree. So, you know what, guys, this is pretty well getting close to the end of our podcast, and I'm going to throw it back out. Do you have any final words? Guy, as outgoing chair, what do you want to share with the listeners? Any last words of wisdom?
Absolutely. Well, first of all, continue to get involved with CPMA. And if you're not, jump in for something, even if it's part of a committee or bringing some help in anything will help. Get started. CPMA do need you, as a continuous non-for-profit organization. How important it is here at Courchesne. The last 50 years of president and executive VP at one point were chair of CPMA. We value this, and you have no ideas of all the sides benefit that comes with it. Everybody in the company grow their circle of influence in a matter that you have no idea that it could be until you do it. So come on in. CPMA needs you.
And Mr. Chair, Mario Masellis, what would you like to share as we wrap up this podcast?
I first of all want to invite everyone to the is it the 94th or 93rd?
Oh no, we're even beyond that. We're beyond that. We're upwards now of 96. So face to face, because we missed the 1 year, right?
Yeah.
So we had our virtual year. So
96th convention and trade show, largest one in Canada, in Toronto, April of next year. I look forward to meeting all of you, seeing all of you attend. I think it's going to be an exciting show. And I hope that everyone that comes. My mandate is to meet everyone that I can across Canada. And we have some international trips as well planned, Ron, as my tenure in chair, to get the international community. I think it's very important that we continue to develop and foster those relationships with people across the world, because it is becoming a very global and transparent market.
We'll be there, Mario.
we will all be there. And you know what, guys? I want to thank you both for coming on. You know, Guy, you're almost off the hook. And I don't know if our listeners realize, you know, for Guy in his outgoing chair position, he's still on our executive. He will have the opportunity to still be part. Our organization's fortunate. Our past chairs, as long as they're in the industry, can be part of our board discussions and help lead the organizations. We have a strong group of past chairs that continue to support the association in their capacity and their business as we move forward. So, Guy, thank you for all of the time over the years and all of the support you've given in your leadership role.
You are welcome.
Keep your phone on, Guy. I need you.
I have several more years to give to CPMA as past chair, and I will definitely be there.
And Mario, you know, we'll be seeing you. We get the joy of traveling with the chair, and you know, we really have a good time. And as Guy was saying, we make a lot of connections through the year, and we do a lot of great things for the industry. So
we really do.
Yeah, look forward to it.
Looking forward to it as well.
So, listeners, more information on the CPMA website for everything from our research to information on food safety, government relations, but most importantly, our next convention that we talked about. If you want to learn more about our trade show or how to register, please visit the cpma.ca website. And you'll also be able to look to hear when the next podcast is going to be coming out.
Thank you to Guy, Mario, and Ron for a fun and informative discussion. And thank you to you, our listeners, for listening. Until next time, fill half your plate with fruits and veggies, continue to seek out new knowledge, and basically never stop growing.